반짝이는 눈빛 눈이 부셔 매일 날 감싸주는 손길.
Shin Yeo-jin lay miserably in her hospital bed when Choi Myung-ji cautiously entered the room, glancing around to make sure no one was watching. With a sense of triumph, she approached the comatose Shin Yeo-jin and in a low voice, she expressed her curiosity about what had happened to Yoo-jin. Choi Myung-ji, drunk on her victory, began speaking to Shin Yeo-jin, who was in a deep coma. However, this arrogant and reckless behavior would ultimately lead to Choi Myung-ji's downfall. Shin Yeo-jin and Secretary Jang had already prepared everything for this moment. The story that would unfold next was one of triumph and justice as Shin Yeo-jin and Secretary Jang exacted their revenge on Choi Myung-ji and Yoon Se-young. Meanwhile, Go Ji-suk was struck with shock when he found Yoon Sung-ho crying in Shin Yeo-jin's hospital room. He didn't listen to what Yoon Sung-ho had to say and in a daze, immediately left the room. Despite Yoon Sung-ho's desperate attempts to reach him, Go Ji-suk ignored the calls, and as misunderstandings piled up, they became a wall that neither of them could break down. All attempts to reach out failed. Meanwhile, Choi Myung-ji, still reeling from the shock of her defeat, found Shin Yeo-jin's will by chance. As she read through it, her eyes widened in disbelief when she saw that Shin Yeo-jin had left her entire fortune to her grandson Chong. The words of the page rattled her, and she couldn't comprehend what she was reading. Despite rereading it, she found no mention of her own name or Yoon Se-young's. Determined not to let this stand, Choi Myung-ji decided to forge the will. She would alter it to leave 40% of Choi Myung-ji's estate to herself, 30% to Yoon Se-young, and a small portion for her grandson's education and living expenses. With this new version in hand, she carefully stamped it with a seal, confident that this would be the final step in securing her future. She folded the forged will, placed in an envelope, and prepared to go to the hospital the next day. When Choi Myung-ji arrived at Shin Yeo-jin's hospital room, she checked the surroundings. No one was there except for Shin Yeo-jin lying motionless in her bed. The room was quiet and the curtains were partially drawn. With a smile on her face, Choi Myung-ji approached the bed, holding the forged will and the small case with the ink pad. She carefully placed them on the table and for a long moment stared at Shin Yeo-jin. She then muttered under her breath as though speaking to a ghost. She lifted Shin Yeo-jin's cold, fragile hand and gently pressed her own fingers onto the ink pad before pressing the finger onto the last line of the fake will. For a brief moment, her hand trembled, but she gritted her teeth and suppressed the shaking, determined to complete her task. The red ink mark on the paper seemed to signal the end of Shin Yeo-jin's reign. With the will stamp, she placed it back into the envelope, gazing at Shin Yeo-jin's still face with a chilling smile. As she prepared to leave, Choi Myung-ji had one last thing to say. She revealed that she was the one who had orchestrated Yoo-jin's hit-and-run accident, a moment of cruel satisfaction for her. With the forged will safely tucked away, she made her way out of the hospital room, walking confidently as though she had already won. Back home, Yoon Se-young, who had been staring out the window, turned and noticed her mother's eerie smile. Without saying a word, Choi Myung-ji showed her the forged will. Yoon Se-young, after reading the contents, smiled widely, her joy evident. She held the will tightly as if embracing her future, and Choi Myung-ji nodded approvingly. The two shared a moment of silent celebration, knowing they had secured their victory. But the celebration was short-lived. Just as Yoon Se-young took out her phone to make a call, the door to the house lamp opened. Two police officers in uniform stepped into the room, announcing that they were under arrest. Both women froze in shock, unable to understand what was happening as the officers showed them the arrest warrant. Before they could react, the door opened again, walking a figure they never expected to see, Shin Yeo-jin. She was no longer in a coma, standing tall with a clear, focused gaze. She calmly told them that she would now show them the evidence they had been so certain they could escape. Behind her, Jang Bi-seo entered, placing a laptop on the table. The screen displayed footage of the hospital room, a clear sign that their plans had been exposed.
'Cause you are